Chapter 3. The transfer happened before sunrise. Steel doors opened. Names were called once. No explanations followed. At the James Lynaugh Unit in Texas, the team was split apart with mechanical precision. No arguments, no goodbyes, just distance. Brock was dragged down one corridor, Poco down another, Arnold farther still. Slow Joe was taken last through 2 extra gates, past thicker glass, into a cell designed for men the system had already given up on. Concrete walls. No window, a single light that never shut off. This was where they put the ones who didn't break. Arnold's cell was reinforced beyond reason. Sensors tracked every movement. Cameras followed his eyes. He paced, restless, tapping the wall with his fingers. "How long does this detention last?" he asked loudly. No one answered. He frowned, genuinely confused. To him it felt like a one-day suspension. Something annoying, temporary. He sat down, stood up, sat again. "Do we get recess?" Silence. Barley never saw a cell. Instead, he was wheeled into a separate building, strapped down under bright white lights. Scientists circled him, voices low, fascinated. How did a service robot escalate into a combat unit? Was it code corruption? External influence? Barley's single eye stayed dark. Offline, unmoving, silent. Joe caught a glimpse of Brock once, hands cuffed, jaw tight, eyes burning. Joe stepped forward instinctively. Brock. Brock snapped around. "Step back," he warned, voice shaking with anger. "I ain't playing with this." The words hit harder than any punch. Joe stopped, nodded once, said nothing. The guards shoved Brock forward. The distance between them returned, thicker now, heavier. Poco lay on his bunk long after lights out. His guitar was gone. His hands felt empty. He hummed quietly, barely a sound, a slow, broken Mexican lullaby his wife used to love. The melody cracked halfway through. He turned his face to the wall and stopped. Slow Joe didn't sleep. He sat on the edge of his bed, elbows on his knees, staring at nothing. They were caged, separated, stripped down to numbers and locks. And still, he thought, there has to be a way out. The next day in the common area, Joe began talking, not preaching, not commanding, just asking. Most inmates ignored him. Others laughed. A few stared too long. Finally, one man turned around, covered in tattoo, eyes cold, posture relaxed in the way only dangerous people relax. "You lost, kid?" the man said. Joe met his eyes, calm, flat. "Ever think about escaping?" The man blinked, then laughed, loud, sharp. The sound drew attention. "This place," he said, gesturing around. "Ain't nobody leaving." Joe didn't flinch. Yes. That answer changed the air. The laughter stopped. The man leaned closer, voice low now. "Don't talk like that, not here. You get people thinking, people die." Others nearby turned their heads, watching, measuring. Joe nodded once. Understood. He turned away, no fear in his posture, no rush, just resolve. Even as the mocking returned, even as the silence tried to crush him, Slow Joe kept asking. Because some walls aren't meant to stop a man. It took time. Most men in this place didn't answer questions. They answered with silence, laughter, or threats. But eventually, one man did. His name was Brandon. He sat alone on a metal bench, shoulders slumped, hands clasped like he was holding something that wasn't there anymore. His eyes stayed on the floor, not watching, remembering. Slow Joe sat beside him. "You ever think about getting out of here?" Joe asked quietly. Brandon didn't laugh, didn't threaten him. He answered immediately. "Every day." Joe turned slightly. "What did you do before this?" Brandon swallowed. "Electrician, union work, good money." A pause, his jaw tightened. "House, wife, kids." Joe nodded. "What do you want back the most?" Brandon's voice cracked, not loud, just honest. "To apologize." Joe waited. "I hit my wife," Brandon said. "Right in front of my kids." Silence followed. Heavy, unavoidable. "I can't undo that." Joe didn't flinch. "I've hurt people too," he said. "Said things I can't take back. Did things I wish I never did." Brandon finally looked at him. His eyes were cold, but tired. "I've always been like this," he said. "Trouble since school. Threw a chair at a teacher once. Couldn't control myself." Joe exhaled slowly. "Why are you really in here?" Brandon looked away again. "Multiple offenses, things I don't want to say out loud." Joe studied him. The anger, the regret, the truth tangled together. Then Joe said it. "I'm getting out of here." Brandon let out a sharp breath. "Don't be stupid. Talking like that gets people killed." Joe's voice didn't rise, it didn't shake. "I won't die." Brandon frowned. "What?" "If you stay with me," Joe continued, calm as stone, "you won't either." There was something in Joe's eyes, something unsettling. Not confidence, certainty. Brandon stared at him for a long moment, the rules of the prison, the consequences, the fear. Then he laughed once. Short, bitter. "Fine," he said. "If I'm going down, I'm not going down alone." Joe stood, and for the first time since entering that prison, he wasn't alone anymore. The man in the cell across from Joe didn't look like a criminal. He sat upright, back against the concrete wall, hands folded in his lap as if he were still on duty. His posture was wrong for prison, too disciplined, too controlled. His eyes stayed alert, tracking every sound in the corridor. Not fear, training. Joe recognized him immediately. The voice, the stare, the way he'd held the radio steady in the police car. James, the same officer who had arrested them, the one who had called for backup, the one who had said just in case. Now he wore the same grey as everyone else. James noticed Joe staring. His body stiffened instantly, his jaw tightened. He stood, slow and deliberate, stepping closer to the bars. "You," he said flatly. Joe didn't move. "You're the one I arrested," James continued, voice low, sharp. "The calm one, with the chaotic team." Joe nodded once. "Yeah," James scoffed. "Figures, of all people." His eyes narrowed. "Why should I listen to anything you say?" Joe didn't answer right away. Instead, he asked quietly, "What happened to you?" That question hit harder than a punch. James turned away, pacing once, then twice. His hands clenched, his composure cracked, not violently, but enough. "I need to get out of here," he snapped. "I was falsely accused. All of it. I don't belong in this place." Joe watched him carefully. "What did they say you did?" James stopped pacing. For a moment, he didn't speak. Then, slower now, stripped of anger. "I shot a man during a traffic stop. Knife in his hand. He charged. I had seconds." His voice dropped. "It was self-defense." Joe didn't interrupt. "They arrested me anyway," James continued. "Then it got worse. They said I was dirty, said I took bribes, said I worked with Mexican cartels." A bitter laugh escaped him. "I spent my whole life enforcing the law, and they turned me into everything I hunted." Silence settled between them. Joe could hear it in his voice. No lies, no excuses, just disbelief. Joe stepped closer to the bars. "Then let's find a way out." James snapped his head toward him. "No," the word came fast, automatic. "I won't betray the law," James said. "I won't become what they think I am." Joe didn't argue. He simply asked, "Are you happy in here?" That stopped him. Joe went on, calm, almost gentle. "Look around. The law you trusted put you in this cell, took your badge, took your name, left you to rot." James stared at the floor. "They turned against you," Joe said, "and you're still protecting them." Long seconds passed. James didn't respond. He didn't look up. He just stood there, wrestling with something deeper than anger, identity, faith, loyalty. Finally, he exhaled. "I don't take orders from anyone," he said quietly. Joe nodded. "I wouldn't want you to." Joe stepped back, eyes drifting down the corridor. Brandon stood there, arms crossed, pretending confidence, but failing to hide the uncertainty etched across his face. The prison hummed around them. Voices, metal, footsteps, a constant roar meant to drown thought itself. "I need 2 people," Joe said at last. His voice cut clean through the noise, calm, certain. 2 who can handle pressure, 2 who can think when everything goes wrong. His gaze shifted to James, then to Brandon. "You in?" James crossed his arms slowly. His eyes hardened, not in defiance but calculation. "I'm listening," he said. Brandon swallowed, shifting his weight. "I ain't going down alone." Joe nodded once, no hesitation. "You won't." He turned toward the far end of the block. Poco stood near the wall of the common area, the fluorescent lights washing his face, thin and pale. Other inmates moved behind him, blurred shapes and low noise, but he felt separate from all of it. His eyes were tired, worn down, but still alive, still fighting. "You back in?" Joe asked. Poco didn't answer right away. He looked down at his hands, empty where his guitar should have been. 1 second passed, then another, long enough for the weight of it all to settle. "Yeah," he said quietly, "if we survive." For the first time since the gates had slammed shut behind them, Joe allowed the smallest smile. "We will." And just like that, the prison shifted. It didn't feel smaller. It felt possible. The plan began in whispers. In the corner of the cafeteria, Brandon and James rehearsed like men preparing for a stage they might not walk off. James leaned in close, voice low, precise. "Stay down, mate." He slammed a plastic tray against the table, not hard enough to start a fight, just loud enough to turn heads. Brandon kicked a chair lightly, testing the sound, the attention it drew. His pulse raced. "Too much," he muttered. Slow Joe watched from a distance, arms folded, unreadable. "You two are terrible actors," he said flatly. Brandon cracked a nervous grin. "Doesn't matter. It only needs to look real." James nodded once. "We scatter after, fast, before anyone starts thinking." Nearby, moving through shadows like a rumour, Poco slipped past tables and bodies. His heart pounded in his ears. He leaned close to a cluster of men, voice barely more than breath, almost a prayer. "Shh! Follow me, please." The noise of the prison swelled. Laughter, shouting, clattering trays, and beneath it all, a pact had been made. The stage was set.